Hello. Oh, is it better if I'm here? I guess. Hi, everyone. I'm Seb, and I'm working at Liip as a strategist and business developer. So in a nutshell, my job is about product, business, and design strategy, kinda. And I also do a lot of offers. I create those offers, I help my colleagues doing offers, and sometimes I pitch. I'm also handling a lot of negotiations, and that sounds maybe not so sexy, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about that as well tonight. So, on paper, I'm somehow just another sales guy. But in reality, I can pitch pretty much anything, but I don't. I'm very opinionated. Sometimes my clients tell me that I'm a pain in the ass, because I won't do just what they want. I'm going to try to understand what they need. And that's very important for me, because I want to bring a sustainable value to them. I want to make something that makes sense. And I think that's where a lot of value is created somehow. So, that being said, I wanted to make this talk a little bit interactive. And so I'm just going to ask a few questions along the way. My first question is, who here likes Christmas? Not so many people like Christmas. Oh, wow. I feel less lonely. That's cool. Well, for the one who likes it, you're very lucky. It's soon. Actually, I have to thank Christmas for one thing, is that thanks to Christmas, I met Gab and Nathan in 2011 already. And actually, we made some cool stuff together already at that time. So just to tell you a little bit about the story, I was just out of business school, and I decided to make a little video as a communication manager at the time. And so this startup was renting Christmas trees. So as you see, the Christmas trees were in pots. So we would take them out of the ground, bring them to the people, take them back, put them again in the ground. Brilliant. And actually, I was the only guy behind the computer. So I had to deal with everything, like building an e-commerce, having all the people calling because they were unhappy, having the postman putting some messages on Friday nights when I was already drunk about it's so annoying to just transport your Christmas trees, and I had to manage that. So at the end of this season, I felt very, very exhausted. And I think I had an understanding that I needed to focus. Focus on something that I didn't know what it was. So it took me a few years. And actually, that's after a few years that I just worked in digital design, that I found my passion for actually selling and imagining projects. And that's not really what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. 4 years ago, I went traveling and I somehow lighted another fire. I decided to start cooking a little bit more seriously. So beside my job, I'm also cooking. And I traveled. I went to different countries in South America. I worked professional kitchen for a while. And I learned a lot, like the language I didn't know, the culture I didn't know, everything I didn't know, basically. And that was really cool for me. Then back here, I started growing some veggies. I started growing a lot of jalapenos because I like to make hot sauce. And I also started doing my own bread. I started exploring new techniques, just a lot of different things that I had no clue about. And then I last year, I think, a year ago or so, I started feeling confident enough to stop just cooking in my kitchen, but start doing some events, start bringing that outside, do public things. And that's when, this summer, I think, my friend Julian, who is also doing a lot of things in cooking, and I decided to design an event about what are we in Switzerland going to eat in 50 years from now. And doing this event, I run into this beautiful flower that's actually cultivated in Switzerland. And that's the lupinus. But it's also called tremotius, I think, if I'm not mistaken. In Portugal, you get them at the apéro quite often. And tonight, I'm going to call them lupinis, because they're just the cutest world, I think. So anyway, I discovered this bean, and actually I need my notes, because I have a few facts about those. And the reason why I found them really great is that they contain 1.5 times more protein than most of the beans you know, and most of the beans you consume, like it's much more high in protein than lentils, for example. It has also a lot of magnesium, a lot of potassium, which, if, like me, you're really into sport, is great for you. And it also has a lot of vitamins, especially B9 is really high, which, if you're a pregnant person, is great. And yeah, so I just found this, and in the research found it very interesting. So I said, oh, okay, let's take that. It grows everywhere. It uses not a lot of water. It's really, really nice. It even grows in Patagonia, actually. I was like, it's somehow too good to be true. So I decided to get some. So I found some in Switzerland, could source them, then had to soak them, then had to cook them, then had to peel them. That was, you know, it's some job. When you're cooking for 24 people, it's a lot of job. And then with kind of half of the thing, I was like, let's try to make kind of a hummus. So I added some spices, I added some love, I tried to, you know, just find a balance, and it did something that looked a little bit like that. And actually, it was not that great. It was quite bland. I added some stuff. It was a little bit better. One person here tried it. And I was just like, that's a lot of work for, at the end of the day, being a bit like, blah, you know. It's not that great. And I had to go to bed with that. Next morning, I wake up, and I'm like, okay, let's just take a different outlook. So I took some onions, I took some carrots, I took some celery, started cutting everything really fine, putting some oil in a pan, putting my veggies, putting the rest of my lupinis, and suddenly I started to feel something was happening, something I liked. And so then I mashed them, I made some little balls, I put them on a sheet, I put this sheet in the oven, came out. It was smelling really good. And I tasted one, and it was like, bang. So what happened is that I went from something that was very blah to something that was really bang. And I was really happy with it. And I served both version of this with the story. So I was like, awesome. And yeah, it's time for my second question. Did you learn something about lupinis tonight? A little bit more people. Cool. So I took the risk tonight to pitch something a little bit unusual, I have to admit. And at this point, you might ask yourself, what is this about? Is it even about pitching? Well, let me get there. It's time to deconstruct a little bit. I have to say, this is not from me. This is, like lupinus, comes from an ancient Greek kind of person called Aristotle, I think it's said in English. And it says that persuasion is about three things. First, you have to find some elements of ethos, so some elements of credibility. And if we look at what I did, is that I told you a little bit about my story. I told you how I met the people who invited me here tonight. Thank you, guys. And I told you a little bit about my job and my journey. So hopefully I'm credible to be here. I also wear a chef jacket. Maybe that helps. And I took some element of pathos. I try building an emotional connection somehow. For that, I use food, because who doesn't rely on food? Like, everybody likes food. And then I try to bring some logic. I mean, I've been very authentic. I've told you I failed. I tried something else. It worked. That's usually how it goes in life. And hopefully you can relate to this. So now if we zoom out a little bit, there are many, many, many good storytelling techniques. And I'm certainly not the best person at storytelling. I'm very out of my comfort zone right now. But what I do is that I just take those three elements and I put my bullet points. What idea do I have? How can I bring this? And how can I somehow make it interesting, or hopefully interesting, for my audience? And now if I zoom out a little bit, another thing I learned about this year, I had no idea about, and I'm doing this job for 10 years, but I really just took a training this year and learned about this, and since then I'm Googling it like every week to just put some points next to it and be like, okay, this is maybe what's happening. So we're going to take it the same way than before. It's called the ladder of inference, and this ladder of inference actually explains how we go from something we think we want to taking action and doing it. So basically, and that's, I say we, it's for the human beings in general, we have in general a pool of available data. So tonight you didn't really have a pool of available data, I just selected some data that I gave you. But in general, you can decide which data you want to select. What do you think is relevant? What do you think it's not? I took the protein, for example, thinking that's pretty relevant for more or less everyone. And then you would build some, we would build some assumptions on top of this selected data. And actually, in my everyday job, I receive briefs and I look at them, and very often I don't know if what is in there is an assumption or if there is data backing it, and which data. And to understand why it is important for the person in front of me, with the person I'm discussing and negotiating with, I need to understand. So I'm going to ask a lot the question why, to understand. And from assumption, we build conclusions in general. And when we have done our conclusions, sometimes we receive briefs, all the conclusions are already there. That's great, but I still need to understand why it is so important. And then the next step, on top of conclusion, is belief. And when a belief is there, it's just really, really painful and takes a lot of energy if you want to deconstruct that belief. So in my position, having to sell something that brings value, if I see that there is a really, really, really strong belief, and if I can't understand it, then I better not fight against it, and if I don't believe in it, I better not even really pursue that deal. So that's also something I try to assess in the process. And in the end, we human beings would take some actions. And that's how most of the actions are taken and what's happening. So in my everyday, I try to take a reflective loop on everything that comes to me to find the best solution, to build a common understanding and find some solution that fit my need and fit the need of the person that is in front of me and needs a website or an app or whatever they are asking for. So, yeah, I'm going to come to my last question now that I have explained you a little bit what happened and how I work and how I think about this. Would you dare trying some lupinis? That's great. Thank you.